Hello team and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan Ahmed Spears. This is Ukraine War Frontline update for the 4th of August 2023. I'm going to super rush this because I need to go and pack my bags. I'm leaving imminently. What am I doing this Frontline update? I have to do it. It is part of my daily existence, my routine. Right. I'm not going to refer to the ISW. Some of you might think, hey, brilliant, it'll be quicker and less bias and all that kind of nonsense in that latter point. But nevertheless, let's go through it. Please pause the video if you don't know what my lines mean on my map. This will tell you that. Right, let's move forward. Remember, they are all defensive lines. We're going to go to the northeast first, northeast Kupiansk to Svatova to Kremina front line. You can see there's some Russian gains here in the north near Kupiansk, near a place called Persho-Travnevi. If we go to Syriac maps here, the pro-Russian mapper, they say the situation northeast. The Russian army made a few new progress, southwest of Persho-Travnevi. Moreover, clashes with the Ukrainian army are taking place in the northern and southern outskirts of Novoselivska. The town is completely destroyed. Well, we knew that anyway. Novoselivska is so that's I don't know any details about what's going on other than from Syriac maps in that Persho-Travnevi area, but it could be that they are trying on what they have tried further down to the south, initially at Novoselivska, where they pushed both north and south, and indeed a little bit into the middle of the small and, as they say, destroyed village of Novoselivska. Oh goodness me, get rid of this. Yes, so the Russians tried that here, and they did get some success both north and south, and they're still fighting there at the moment, and then tried it on to a larger degree around just to the west of Svatova, around Ryahorodka, but initially at Karmazianivka. There is still, I think, activity there too. Indeed, as Getty says here, in the Svatova area, the situation south of Novoselivska, the Ukrainians have recaptured some areas. That's south of Novoselivska. That is actually just up here. So potentially some activity around Krivoshivka. This is what Syriac Maps is talking about there, saying that both sides are sort of pushing there. But the outlook is more positive for the Ukrainians from this source. The armed forces of Ukraine repulsed several attacks along the forest belts south of Novoselivska, and the village itself. Fighting continues on several fronts. And then as we come further to the south, in Radu Hosu's summary here, nothing much to be mentioned until we sort of get down to Bakhmut. So we'll go there next via Kremina. Activity, as you can see, in those areas. Then we come down to around, just north of Dubrova, and this was quite surprising to me. Syriac Maps admitting that the Ukrainians retook some new areas west of Dubrova, and I've got it, west of Dubrova and a bit sort of northwest as well. So they've retaken some area there. Oh, as I say, that's surprising. I haven't heard that from many other sources. On the other hand, the Russian army is making small progresses along the firebreak in Kremina forest, so potentially in that corner area where they have made some progress over the last few weeks. That's just in this area. The Russians have had progress in Kremina, in the forest, Serebyansky forest, south of Kuzymyrna, over the last week or so. So it's interesting to see Ukraine push back there. We know that they are, both sides attack routinely each other in this area. Now, Syriac Maps also has some gains for the Russians in the Bilohorivka area. That is something of a worry for the Ukrainians. There's been fierce fighting there. They've gained some purchase on some of the heights just to the northeast. Syriac Map says during the last hours, Russians restarted advances in this axis and managed to recapture a series of high positions that overlook the first buildings of the town from the east. So that is a worry for the Ukrainians there. The net is closing somewhat, although I think we've probably been there before. There seems to be a bit of a yo-yo in this area, yo-yo effect of going sort of backwards and forwards. The Russians will struggle because the Ukrainians have some heights to the west. That's why this area to the north was important. It was possibly the Russians coming through the forest, breaching the river here, the Sversky Donetsk River, and then attacking the Ukrainians from the north. But I don't think they've been able to do that. It's important the Ukrainians, I think, hold there. That possibly is a key to maintaining control over Siversk. But of course, the question is, do the Russians have the forces that enable them to take places and keep them and keep that momentum going? And I don't think they do at all. Right. So we come to Bakhmut. We go to Radu Hosu, the Romanian analyst. He says Klishchivka has been abandoned by the Russians. It's not in the Russian hands at all. Andrivka is liberated. It's been attacked twice by Russian paratroopers who are trying to retake it. Kurdyumivka is contested about 30% under Ukrainian control. So if we go to Bakhmut, again, no news about anything taking place, particularly in the north, as far as I'm concerned. But I haven't checked all of my usual sources today. It is a bit of a rush job today. Klishchivka, Andrivka, Kurdyumivka, these three, what we've been talking about for a good week or two. Andrivka seems to be absent of Russians, the same with Klishchivka, even though I don't understand how Syriac Maps has done so much updating over the last 24 hours, but has not updated Klishchivka and has that fully under Russian control. I just don't understand that. There's no footage that supports that, no claims. I mean, the shelling is all around here. We've got the Russians definitely pulled back to this railway line in this northern area. It's just, I don't know what Syriac Maps is doing, whether it's just like tenuously holding on to some kind of wishful thinking in the area. Nonetheless, let's look at some of the other claims here. We have, this is Global War Monitor saying that in the front line north of Klishchivka is now confirmed to be the railway. And Russia has released a video. So Russia released videos showing them shelling Ukrainians here, right? If they're shelling Ukrainians here, then this map is wrong. You know, yeah, come on, Syriac. But they have updated largely elsewhere, and they've done a pretty good job of that, from what I can gather. Just I don't know what they're doing in that southern Bakhmut area. Right. No reports continues. The 92nd Mechanized is engaged in heavy fighting near that's in the wrong place. That's Kuzymivka. That's just to say that back up north. Sorry, I misread that as Klishchivka, Kurdyumivka. No, just to say that up north, the Russians and Ukrainians are losing quite a bit of equipment. Russians, particularly around Kuzymivka, just now. Nonetheless, this is what I meant to say. Bakhmut to Kurdyumivka, the No report says the Ukrainians have taken over an important stronghold north of Kurdyumivka. They're about to enter the town. The same goes for Andrivka. The Ukrainians have been battering dugouts and artillery mortar positions and are gradually moving into the settlement. Well, that goes against what Radu Hosu says, that the Ukrainians controlled 30% of Kurdyumivka there. A No report saying they're just going in and they've taken control over an important height to the north. Make up your own mind. I would suggest that they probably are in Kurdyumivka. There's usually a bit of a delay getting this kind of information, and I'd say they probably have control over Andrivka, or at least firmly in the grey zone. So I'd say Syriac Maps is wrong, and the Russians are pushed back behind the railway all along here, is my guess at the moment. And then we come out of Bakhmut. So it's all about the south of Bakhmut. Quite a bit of activity again in the Avdiivka area, where we have to the north, Syriac Maps has some gains for the Russian, but that is actually what the gains I told you yesterday, that Deep State Map of all people showed initially. They were being quick off the mark there. Andrew Perpetua then followed suit a day later, and then 2 days later, Syriac Maps includes that in their update. So the Russian army increased control around the town of Kamyanka, taking positions west of the adjacent reservoirs. Yep, nothing we didn't already think. They also have, and I haven't updated this on my map, I think I've missed this out. But I don't quite understand though. They've got in this area to the south, Deep State has some Ukrainian gains here, and it looks like Syriac Map has some Russian gains just there. So I don't really know. Although, having said that, Deep State Map has that under Russian control. So anyway, so it could well be that that is the case. But there's been potentially movement both ways in that particular area. It's all quite confusing. Lots of lines there. Sorry, not sorry. So that is some activity in Avdiivka, which we've not seen too much movement on the lines around here for some time, and then suddenly a fair bit both north and south. We did have some movement in Novelska. Now, as we come down to Donetsk, the southern Donetsk area front line, we have Mikilska and Vuhledar. So here there is some claim that, and this is admitted by Suriyat Maps there. So this is, goodness me, about time. So Suriyat Maps has had a real difference between the other mappers. They had Russian control right up to Vuhledar, and they've had that for months, and it just hasn't been the case. It's not been that for a long time. They've then said today, that the Ukrainian army retook the area east of Vuhledar. Well, they did that ages ago. Clarifications were also made in the adjacent farms, which are previously retaken by Ukrainian troops sometime in June. Finally confirmed. Yeah, okay. Well, fair enough. Actually, they've admitted that, so that's better. But why they took so long to finally confirm that, where everyone else had that a long time ago, but then saying that they've also made further gains too. Indeed, no, we'll come to that in a second. So this is quite significant. Uh, this is a significant change there for Suryat Maps, and it shows that the Russians, as I talked about yesterday, the Russians are under quite a bit of pressure here, and it would be interesting to see if the Ukrainians could get behind the Russian Suryak defensive lines. Sorry, not Surovikin lines, just here, and attack the Russians down towards Mariupol from this direction. That could be on the cards. It might not be. There's also this gain here, and this is not mentioned at all. So going up towards Novomykhailivka, the Ukrainians have pushed the Russians back quite considerably. Actually, it went sort of up there, and now it's come back down here. That's quite a lot of difference there. I don't know if that's a rejig or whether that's Ukrainians attacking yesterday, but Suryat Maps has got that, although they don't have a tweet on it, so they don't talk about it. There's no commentary there, but there is quite a change in that area. Right. Let's go and look at just a general comment here, and I shared this with you previously. Look at all the Russian forces along this front line there, and no dedicated reserve forces behind. So that's really significant. Once the Ukrainians can break down this defensive, I guess, capability in terms of how capable the Russians are in using artillery, in using air defense. Once they do that, they can break through in multiple places, would be the theory, because actually there are no dedicated reserves that the Russians can bring in to defend. On the southern front, Natalia Humanyuk says the initiative on the southern front is moving very slowly, but very confidently toward our side. And I'd say that's broadly, I would imagine, to be correct. I think all the indicators are that yes, it's looking good for Ukraine, just not as quickly as some people had initially, and probably as they had thought themselves. They've adapted, changed their tactics, and it's all looking quite positive in terms of the ratio of Russian losses to Ukrainian losses. We've seen this with Oryx, we've seen this with Andrew Perpetua in terms of the equipment lost, and people like Artie Green, who are quite off. Well, Artie Green, who's a commander that I dipped into his interview yesterday, and he's very honest, and he's saying, look, they are taking almost an order of magnitude greater losses than we are. So that is almost 10 times the losses. And I would believe that because he's said it when things have been going bad for Ukraine. He's been telling us that and saying why. He says that it's rather like Kherson, where they had 2 months of attrition before the Russians capitulated. 2 months of attrition here should leave us, round about now, for the next couple of weeks, you might start seeing the Russians have some issues. The logistics have been absolutely battered. It wouldn't surprise me if there was, if we started seeing more breakthroughs along that southern front going forward. In the Velika Novosilka area, which is to the west of here, we have Staromilsk. We have lots of claims about what's going on here. Trying to work out exactly what's going on is pretty difficult. We have a lot of, I talked about this morning, a lot of first-person view drone footage of targets being struck in Staromilnivka. It's just a lot of footage. Andrew Perpetua marked a load yesterday on his map. The Ukrainians are hammering targets there, which means that they are probably confidently going to go through Zavitne to the south. With maybe you might see them move quite quickly. They might already be here. I don't know. It's just the fog of war, operational security. claim is from Radu Hosu that in that axis, the Russians tried to recapture Staromilsk. They failed. Uruzhany is contested, and Ukrainians are not only advancing into the village, but through the east. Ukrainian military, probably reconnaissance troops, have approached Staromilivka. More, I don't think I need to write. So he reckons that actually you have had, reconnaissance, deep reconnaissance groups maybe coming down to this area here, but also talking about east of Uruzhany in this area where there's quite a bit of fields under the Russian control here that you would imagine would be under threat. Haven't heard anything about Novodonetsk and Novomayorsk again. Really don't know what's going on there. There were rumors that the Ukrainians had liberated those, but alas, nothing over the last few days. So, yeah, again, Priyatne to Staromilsk, nothing heard about this area. I'd expect the Ukrainians to be putting a lot of pressure on here because actually this is high ground and the Ukrainians could really do with taking that to give them a really good position to attack down to Staromilivka across to Zavitne. As well as onto Priyatne. So anyway, yeah, some information coming out about from here, but not as much granular detail as obviously I would like. And then we move on to Robotna, where there is quite a bit of news coming out. Don't know quite what to make of what's going on there. Rady Hosu says of here, the Ukrainians broke through one of the fortified lines between Robotna and Verbove. Personal opinion is Robotna is probably a preparation for a semi-chase similar to the Battle of Gazala in the Second World War. The second one won by Rommel, about 5 kilometers to the south of the main fortified line of the Surovikin line. There will be an extreme test for the Ukrainians. So he's talking about how the Ukrainians appear to be they've broken that first line of Surovikin line, which I think was up here, but they seem to be moving down towards Verbove, maybe down the Surovikin line. So if we look at some of these claims, the Null report says Ukrainians have progressed eastwards towards Verbove. Ukrainian units control trenches, which are part of the very first lines of defense, and the fighting is near Novopokrovka, and it seems to be increasing. So that is just up here to the northeast there. Novopokrovka. The Ukrainians have tried to attack there a number of times. They've lost quite a bit of equipment there in doing so, but that could be an area where they are having some success at the moment. I don't know. But I think they're moving down the trench line towards Verbove. Lots of people are talking about this. Ukrainians have already entered the first Russian defense lines in southern direction, outskirts of Robotna settlement as well. So there could be elements of Ukrainian attack on the outskirts there. Although I was talking about how they would prefer to go flank Robotna rather than having to go through it and get the Russians to kind of move out in that way, a bit like I guess Staromilsk maybe. Although they won't flank in both sides because Uruzhany is the other side, so maybe not. Okay, Ukrainian trenches. Ukrainians units are in the trenches that are part of the Russian first line of defense, and he shows first-person view drones. So this is a Russian first-person view drone attacking a Ukrainian trench, but it is a Russian trench, or was a Russian trench. It's been taken by the Ukrainians, and they are in control of that trench. And he talks about them being calmly in control of it, despite this first-person view drone attack, which would indicate, and this is mentioned elsewhere, in another one. So here from Andy Schneider, this would indicate that the Russians aren't really around in terms of their troops. Managed to penetrate and take the first trenches of Surovikin line. The squads proceed calmly and systematically. This is an important first step. It means that the Russian troops aren't nearby in those trenches, and that allows the Ukrainians to get on and clear the trenches to the best of their abilities and possibly move down further towards Verbove. Here's a video that should prove this. So breaking the line is possible and indeed done. He's quite positive about this, and then talking about further up the front line in Staromilsk, how the use of HIMARS and cluster munitions and artillery is giving the Ukrainian success there. He goes on to then talk about the West. So we possibly have, another claim here saying they're close to the second line of defense here, already having broken the first line of defense up in that area that I've been talking about. So up here, broken that first line of defense, moving down towards Verbove and possibly close to a second line of trenches in the area. it has been tough for the Ukrainians in Robotna. They have lost a lot of equipment and probably quite a few men as well. But the cost for the Russians will no doubt be equally, if not greater, equally as high, if not greater. And then we come to talk about Kamyanska. So here, Andy Schneider says, Kamyanska, the Ukrainians maintain the pressure towards Vasilivka. They bind the Russian troops there and even manage to push forward and take Russian positions. So they're having some success there, although that's not recorded on any map changes for Syriac or Andrew Perpetua. You can see that the distance they've come from the beginning of the counteroffensive, so they are moving. It's just slow progress. Bite and hold, bite and hold, bite and hold. And then eventually, the idea would be that the Russians just capitulate. I talked this morning about not necessarily puncturing through places where there's heavy crust, but sanding the crust down, so there's just no artillery and air defense to be brought to bear, really effectively anyway. And that allows you to puncture in multiple places then, and possibly the Russians just capitulate at that point. That's the hope. We'll see how it proceeds. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe and share. Take care, all the best, and I'll speak to you from a foreign country maybe tomorrow. Toodle pips.